It's Wednesday, July 24, 2019, and this is Globespan 24x7 News. My name is Samuel Suknandon, coming to you live from Georgetown, Guyana. Here are the major headlines for today. Migrant labor exploitation cases highest on Guyana's tip register. GLDA confirms chicken shortage to be rectified this week. Guyana is no doubt facing a constitutional crisis, says commentator. Government disbursed $25 million in grants to over 500 indigenous youths. And GB and GW, along with BCGI, to meet over new collective labor agreement. We start off tonight's news by telling you that Ghana's head of state, President David Granger, returned home on Tuesday evening after visiting Cuba for his scheduled medical evaluation. President Granger, who was accompanied by First Lady Mrs. Sandra Granger, departed Guyana for Cuba Friday last. According to a statement issued by the Embassy of Guyana in Cuba, the president's medical specialist has so far expressed satisfaction with his results and recovery process. The statement quotes, "They have found nothing negative about his present state of health, and in keeping with the protocol associated with the treatment and monitoring of this type of medical condition, the specialists have proposed that he return to Cuba after 90 days for another round of evaluation," end quote, the statement added. The president was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, the most common form of blood cancer. With the recent court judgment handed down by the CCJ, Guyana's two main political figures are yet to decide on a way forward. As such, Guyanese are now worried about Guyana's political future. Political commentator Raman Gaskin said there is no doubt the country is now facing a constitutional crisis. The details in this story.
At the present time, we're in a constitutional crisis here. We're in a crisis where the government is disobeying the decisions of the court and is violating the Constitution and refuses to do what the court says and refuses to do what the Constitution says, to resign. The cabinet and the president must resign and call election 90 days. They're refusing. We have a crisis.
Raman Gaskin. Gaskin, a former advisor to the late president, Dr. Chedi Jagan, feels that the court has made a clear decision, but government has given its own interpretation to it, refusing to accept the same. The political commentator told Globespan 24x7 News that he is not optimistic that President David Granger and opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo will come to an amicable solution soon.
I think eventually we will see the intervention of the foreign people. We've already heard from the American ambassador and the British and the European Union people. Strangely enough, the Canadian lady did not join in that release. I don't know for what reason, but they are trying to, shall we say, put some pressure on them to arrive at something soon.
Speaking about the process to select a new GCOM chair, Gaskin stressed on the importance of that position, especially since politics plays an important role in the Guyanese society.
This position is very important. In a very strange twist, President Granger himself submitted names to Jagdeo for Jagdeo to put on Jagdeo's list to bring back to Granger. It sounds like little children playing. Because anytime Jagdeo put on his list a name that he gets from Granger, that will be the name that Mr. Granger will obviously pick. And Jagdeo rightfully rejected that idea. And we still don't have a chairman.
And while the current house-to-house registration process is being challenged in court, Gaskin feels if it is allowed to continue, then general elections could be further delayed until 2020. For Globespan 24x7 News, I'm Samuel Suknandon. The government of Guyana has hinted at plans to return to Parliament to vote for a two-thirds majority in an effort to better prepare for the highly anticipated general and regional elections and to extend the life of government. However, the opposition has maintained that they will not be returning to Parliament. Kellon Rover has the details in this report.
The 3 months had been overtaken by the court matter. That is clear. And so the next step is an extension by two-thirds majority, which the Lord Chief Justice said has not been done as yet. In other words, he's still holding out an expectation that the parties will get together and do as 106.7 require. Since the 3 months had elapsed, you go and get a 2/3 extension.
Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Basil Williams. Addressing reporters at his Carmichael Street, Georgetown office on Tuesday, the Attorney General said there is no limit to the period of extension should the government and the opposition attend Parliament to vote on a 2/3 majority to extend the life of the government and the timeline for elections. The AG added that if this is considered, both sides, along with the Guyana Elections Commission, can sit and consider a definite date to host the country's general and regional elections.
But fortunately for us, we're under 106.7. And if there's no 2/3 majority, you fall back on the president, who happens to be the person who has the power to name an election date and also to dissolve parliament.
Additionally, in a recent media interview, Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ranjatan reiterated that the government stands by GCOM in continuing the house-to-house registration process, claiming that it is the only way to ensure that the election is credible, free, and fair. Meanwhile, opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo has made it clear and remains adamant that his party representatives will not return to Parliament to lengthen the life of the government and will continue to call for elections to be held by September 18. The opposition also wanted the current house-to-house registration process stopped. For Globespan 24x7 News, I am Kellon Rover reporting.
Meanwhile, a 36-year-old security guard who is said to be attached to a private security firm in Berbice lost one of his fingers on Tuesday morning while guarding a nursery school at Mount Sinai. According to information reaching Globespan 24x7 News, Jagdish Jilal of 18 to 23 Ken Street, New Amsterdam, Berbice, was at work when a lone bandit armed with a cutlass attacked him and started firing shots. During the ordeal, Jilal said he had no other alternative but to use his hands to shield himself.
Then I'm come up with taste type, barely see eye, and it must have fight some chap. And the only thing I could do is borrow it when you're a fan. And about to finish, he said, pass the cell phone. And I throw my cell phone and give it. And it fall on the ground, he picked up and he run back at the back of the school we coming from. And I was hollering for help. No one will lend me assistance. I had to walk and go to the next neighbor opposite. And then the man call, and the man, I pass out there and then and I wake up, I see the ambulance and the police and stuff come there.
The man is currently hospitalized at the New Amsterdam Hospital, where he underwent an emergency surgery. This has been the first time this has ever happened during his 2 years experience on the job. Police at B Division are investigating the incident. The Ghana Livestock Development Authority, GLSDA, has confirmed that there is a shortage of chicken on the local markets. In a statement posted on the GLDA's Facebook page, the authority said its records show there has been a reduction in the number of cases of hatching eggs imported when compared to 2018. This could perhaps be attributed to the shortage. The GLD said in a statement, some farmers have also been complaining of reduced growth rates and higher mortality, which may be attributed to the reduction of poultry meat on the market, end quote. So far, the major players in the sector were consulted and assured that the situation would be rectified during the week. This is based on the hatching and grow-out time for the chickens. The GLDA has also assured that these businesses are able to maintain supply to their major customers. As the fight against trafficking in persons TIP continues in Guyana, there are still many challenges in which the government is working to address. However, labor exploitation remains dominant in Guyana, where Latin Americans are predominantly victims. More details in this report. Drugs and prostitution continue to dominate human trafficking cases worldwide. This is no different for Guyana, says Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjatan. Ramjatan made this remark during a trafficking in persons training for educators and welfare officials earlier today.
That is the big one. It is that and labor exploitation here in Guyana. They are working for these people that have promised them a number of things, that life will be so great in the mining areas or in the forestry areas and so on. And when they go there, it is not really true.
The minister informed participants that most of the people trafficked in these areas here come from depressed communities within Latin America.
They feel that Guyana is real blessed in that regard, that it is far superior to where their conditions are, how their state of affairs are. So you could understand it. That is what migration does to people. People always feel that it is greener pastures, and so they become gullible to these statements made by these people that look very kind to them, and then they get entrapped into it.
Oftentimes, these persons become victims of rape, while others are forced into prostitution. Some of them are even led to pay back monies to those who brought them to these shores.
They are exploited very heavily. And there are cases in Guyana that we have come across, and we want to clip in the...
Ramjatan admitted that the money and power in these operations could have major influence on politicians and persons in authority.
Utilize it for corruption of law enforcement officers, the rank and file cops that you have in the police force and all of that. And that there can be truth in that, because there is truth in that in other countries, which have done more extensive reports than us and have been advanced in their investigation into these crimes.
The minister said reporting these crimes to the police, which in some cases are complicit, will remain a major challenge in fighting trafficking in persons. Despite limited prosecution, Ramjatan said government is working to ensure that these matters are not swept under the carpet. He noted too that the judiciary will have to play its part in ensuring that these cases are heard expeditiously. During the training, it was disclosed that the Ghana Police Force has recorded 18 cases of trafficking in persons for the year so far. These cases involved the trafficking of 131 persons. All of the victims were females, and the cases were reported in regions 2, 3, 4, and 7. For Globespan 24x7 News, I'm Samuel Suknandan. Young entrepreneurs from over 32 communities in Mabaruma and Matakai sub-district benefited from over $25 million in grants, which will help them to boost their respective businesses. The recipients are those who were trained and certified under the Hinterland Employment and Youth Service HAYES program. We have more details in this report.
Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs Sidney Alicock, while conducting a recent outreach in the region, presented a grant to the youths. Those benefited are managing established ventures ranging from grocery outlets, catering, cattle and poultry farm, among others. Most of the current youth entrepreneurs were either unemployed or school dropouts before attending the HAYES program. Minister Alicock said HAYES is the fulfillment of a promise made by the coalition government. He explained that it is part of the 10-point plan for hinterland development, which was outlined by President David Granger.
That Guyana is on the map today. Guyana is number one in this part of the world. Check Venezuela, check Brazil, check Suriname. They're not better off than us. Our economy is growing. Last year it was 4.1%. This year, as I speak, is just a little over 4.6%. And it's the fastest growing economy in the world.
Meanwhile, the youths were also encouraged to better equip and prepare themselves for the expected oil and gas industry in Guyana.
We got to think about the accommodation. We got to think about the food. We got to think about guides to the tourists. We got to think about beautifying our areas. We have to think of how we are going to use the money to step us in higher education, better hospitals, better roads, better education, better security, better facilities, better transport. That's what we're supposed to be thinking now. getting in readiness. Not sitting down and wasting time, bad-talking one another, misleading one another. Let us unite. Guyana is a beautiful country.
The government, over the past 3 years, has invested $2.3 billion in hinterland youth empowerment, which has resulted in the establishment of 2,054 successful businesses under the Hinterland Employment and Youth Service (HAYS) program. For Globespan News, I am Kellen Rover reporting.
My apologies, I'll read that over. In light of recent complaints lodged with the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, by residents of Diamond over the operations of the Demerara Distillers Limited, DDL, a meeting was organized. During that meeting, Minister with responsibility for housing, Annette Ferguson, Chief Executive Officer of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, Leland Saul, and DDL's Executive Chairman, Komal Samaru, met with the residents to discuss their concerns. The minister told residents that government wants to ensure that each Guyanese family is afforded good living conditions. She also reminded them that President David Granger has made it clear that no Guyanese should be living in shanties, slums, and squatters' settlements conditions. At the conclusion of the meeting, it was decided that the CH&PA will begin preliminary work during the coming week. The work inclusive of a review of the cadastral plan of the area, which shows the property's legal boundaries, areas, and dimension. It is expected to be completed in time for another community meeting. Meanwhile, the DDL has pledged its commitment to working with government and the residents to find a permanent solution to their predicament and to ensure that they have access to improved living conditions. Several weeks after an audit found that several fraudulent transactions had taken place at a Special Organized Crime Unit SOCU, no legal action has been taken. However, Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjatan said that the file is still with the Police Legal Advisor, retired Justice Claudette Singh. The file was sent to Singh since May. In the meantime, the former head of SOCU, Assistant Commissioner Sidney James, was sent on administrative leave in early July, and the new head was named last week. The audit was ordered by Police Commissioner Leslie James following claims of mismanagement of over $52 million collected from the Public Security Ministry for operational costs. The minister spoke with the press about the issue at the sidelines of an event today.
Depending on what the legal advisors say, yes, I am as concerned as you are.
What does those allegations mean for organized crime fighting?
Well, you know, that is true. It is a serious thing when, you know, you have maladministration and probably worse than that happening within certain institutions of law enforcement. You do discredit the system. But the good thing about it is that we are investigating even the very high-ups. And that is important. That's a big shift. That is a development here. So the rogue element is not just your lance corporal and your corporal, but if there are people right up in the big high places, we are going to get them. And that is the system and institutions building that we want. People must never, never feel they can act with impunity. And that is where the deterrence will come.
Guyana is the first country in the Commonwealth to sign up to the Maritime Economy Plan, which aims to develop the country's potential in the sector. The government is receiving support from the Commonwealth Maritime Economics Program in crafting the plan. More details in this report.
The British High Commissioner to Guyana, Greg Quinn, at the opening ceremony for the consultations, commended the efforts by the government of Guyana. He noted that the goal is to encourage sustainable marine development.
Now, our joint work, our Guyana-UK joint work on this, started back in 2016 when the then Prime Minister David Cameron made a commitment to help small islands and developing states to build their, quote, blue economy, unquote, capacity. Now at that stage it was decided that the vehicle to be used to take this work forward would be the Commonwealth Marine Economies Programme. For the past 3 years, the work of the CMEP has focused on technical activities. In Guyana, everyone here will know, I hope, of the support we have provided for hydrographic surveys, capacity building of both MARAD and the GLSC in survey techniques.
The British diplomat says the plan aims to identify sectors of the maritime industries that foster sustainable development and to prepare a tailored action plan to address gaps, overcome obstacles, and build capacity to grow those sectors. In the process, it will consider the government's short, medium, and long-term priorities.
All of you and all of Guyana should be proud of the fact that Guyana was the first country to sign up to create a maritime economy plan. That, I believe, is a reflection of the vision of the government and all of the agencies. All are clearly aware of the fact that the future of Guyana must rest on an effective use and conservation of all sectors of the country's economy.
Commissioner of the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, Trevor Ben, noted that the plan will develop the potential of Guyana's marine economy in a sustainable, resilient, and integrated way. According to Ben, it will also help Guyana tackle some of the challenges it faces in the sector.
In fulfilling this mandate, the Commission is extremely pleased to be able to collaborate with the British High Commission and with sister agencies on this important initiative. Separately, the Commission has also embarked on a series of activities and initiatives, all of which are intended to ensure that the Guyana's maritime environment is protected and effectively managed. Some of these activities, of course, include this consultation, which we're going to have starting today. We've also, in the recent past, with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I want to say a special thanks to our colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who has been very, very supportive in all of our efforts. We try to involve them as much as possible, given the nature of the work that we do at the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, and which impact largely on the country.
Kellon Rover for Globespan 24x7 News.
Thanks, Kellon. Following the settlement of the dispute on March 20, 2019 between the Bauxite Company of Guyana, Inc., BCGI, and workers of Arima and Kokwani, represented by the Guyana Bauxite and General Workers Union, GB and GWU, there has been engagement with the BCGI management on a day-to-day difference. The union has been able to date to conduct its activities in an uninhibited atmosphere. Workers are, however, still mobilized and are anxiously awaiting the outcome of a new collective labor agreement, which is to be realized from the ongoing negotiation, which will continue on Friday, July 26, 2019. GB and GW's negotiation team would be led by Lincoln Lewis, General Secretary, and BCGI Branch President and Secretary Ephraim Belosa and Leslie Juna, respectively. Workers of the union are asking for, among other things, improvement in vacation benefit, increase in wages and salary, education allowances for workers and family. Both union and the BCGI management are expected to continue the negotiation in good faith. We'll now take a look at our regional and international news. Regionally, at least 2 Caribbean countries have responded to warnings by the Trinidad-based Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, that regional countries should seek emergency health care because of the current outbreak of Ebola. St. Lucia and Barbados have both indicated that steps are being taken to ensure that their populations are not put at risk. The World Health Organization has declared a public health emergency of international concern. St. Lucia's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Marlene Fredericks-James, says while the risk of getting a case of Ebola is very low there, the possibility of being affected exists. She revealed that St. Lucia reactivated its preparedness plans and will continue sensitizing persons and monitor the situation. Meanwhile, in Barbados, the Ministry of Health and Wellness said It is reviewing and updating its Ebola plan to ensure that the authorities are able to respond effectively if the need arises. Internationally, Boris Johnson, an ardent supporter of Britain's withdrawal from the European Union, took over as Prime Minister from Theresa May on Wednesday, projecting an optimistic view of the country's future despite the looming spectre of Brexit. Johnson, a former Foreign Secretary and two-term Mayor of London, is a polarizing figure known for over-the-top displays and a charismatic bluster that has connected with many voters but alienated others. But in his first address in front of 10 Downing Street, his new residence shortly after meeting with Queen Elizabeth II and being invited to form a new government, he offered a rebuttal to those who doubt his ability to lead. He said, and I quote, "After 3 years of unfounded self-doubt, it is time to change the record," he said in a speech that repeatedly made reference to Brexit, an issue that divided the country and brought down the last two prime ministers. No one in the last few centuries have succeeded in betting against the pluck, nerve, and ambition of this country. They will not succeed today. Johnson promised to start work immediately on a series of policies, including putting more police officers on the streets, revitalizing social care, and strengthening the National Health Service. He was also preparing to appoint a new cabinet a day after his easy victory in a Conservative Party leadership vote was confirmed. And now for a look at our sport news. The male teams in the ExxonMobil Under-14 football competition are still a step forward from the final showdown after battling for semi-final spots. Being tied at 3 goals when regulation time expired, Marion Academy and Queenstown Secondary settled the differences at the penalty mark. Jason Titus netted a brace in the 80 and 28 minutes, while Kempson Spencer completed Queenstown's threes in the 30th over the weekend. Bradley Walton opened Marion Academy's campaign in the 7th minute, and Daniel Lowe scored 2 of his own. Queenstown Secondary eventually emerged victorious after netting 3 penalties to Marion's 2. In the final game, Dolphin Secondary had their way with Pleasance Bosco handling them a 6-0. In the female semi-finals, blemishes were made. New Campbellville Secondary edged past defending champions Charlestown Secondary after a 3-2. And on the other hand, Rhinebeck cruised into the final with a 2-0 win over Tuckville Secondary. The successful male team will now move on to the semifinals, while the girls await their final game. And finally, in sport, football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo will not face sexual assault charges in Las Vegas, the U.S. Clark County District Attorney's Office said Monday. The allegations, which were first made in 2009, cannot be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, the office said in a statement. Representatives from the Portuguese footballer, who currently plays for Juventus, have repeatedly denied the allegations since German publication first reported them in 2017. Speaking through representatives, he has maintained the encounter was consensual, but the person says that she was raped and then coerced into silence. And that has brought us to the end of today's news. Before we go, here's a recap of the major headlines. Migrant labor exploitation cases highest on Guyana's tip register. GLDA confirms chicken shortage to be rectified this week. Guyana is no doubt facing a constitutional crisis, says commentator. The government grants $25 million to over 500 indigenous youths. And GB and GW, along with BCGI, to meet over new collective labor agreement. Thank you for watching Globespan 24x7 News. On behalf of myself, Samuel Suknandan, the news and technical team, until next time, do have a great evening. Goodbye for now.